Up until this point, we have spent a lot of time talking about trades, free agency, and what the Lakers should do or maybe will do with their 15-man roster, primarily about their bigger moves and bigger names in their team. Guys like LeBron, will he take a pay cut or simply opt into that player option? Will they give Luka a new contract extension and will he sign it with them? Who are their trade targets or who should be their trade targets? A lot of stuff like that. But an often forgotten asset and something they are a part of during the offseason does happen to be the NBA draft. Now they obviously don't have a first round draft pick like last year, where they took Dalton Connect and that may or may not work out for them, but they do have a late second round draft pick, that being the 55th overall draft pick. And while that might not sound like much or might not be a big asset to them, the Lakers scouting department has been really solid in the past decade, drafting late gems like Josh Hart, for example, a late first round draft pick, even a second round draft pick like Ivica Zubac, who currently is playing for their rival LA Clippers, or even undrafted guys like Austin Reeves, for example. So yes, they definitely can find late round talent, and this might be an underrated asset for their team. So with that in mind here, we'll talk about a player that they maybe should take, not only during this video, but we'll talk about more potential prospects and a few of my favorite late round gems for them or potentially for their team, what they need in the NBA draft, what they should target, both by skill set and position, and simply talk about their options with their 55th overall draft pick, as they do have a few of them. But before we get too far into it, if you do enjoy the videos and have been enjoying the Laker content, then don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit that notification bell to never miss out when I upload a video. And I genuinely do appreciate you guys that already have and do continue to watch every video. But without further ado, let's dive right into it. And beginning with where the Lakers are at in the NBA draft and their potential options with their draft pick, as we have yet to talk about the draft so far. Once again, they do have the 55th overall draft pick, the 4th final draft pick in the 2025 NBA draft. No, not the 5th final one. There are only 59 draft picks this year, not 60, from the New York Knicks having lost their draft pick from some prior tampering issues. But after the Lakers take this player and sign them to a contract, they have the option to sign them to a 2-year contract, a 4-year contract with 2 non-guaranteed years coming in years 3 and 4, or then potentially to a 2-way contract. So unlike a first round draft pick, there is not a certain contract they have to offer them or give them, much like they had to with their first round draft pick last year, Dalton Connect. They can do anything from a 2-year contract, a 4-year contract, or a 2-way contract with their 55th overall draft pick. But like I said, that is currently their only draft pick, though it does not have to be. An additional option for them would be to package or trade this pick entirely. They could either package it with cash considerations to move up higher in the second round, which they have done before and I wouldn't be completely shocked by it, or they could potentially outright trade it. Maybe trade it and offload some salary with it, or simply get rid of it because they don't want to roster another player that might be another project. Or apart from that, could maybe keep this draft pick and buy another second round draft pick with it, as they have done that before as well. But apart from all that, and assuming they do keep their 55th overall draft pick, here's what I think they need in that draft pick. First and foremost, somebody that can contribute to their team right away and could potentially be a rotation player at the bare minimum. I mean, 3 of their past 4 draft picks now have been pretty much too raw to contribute, those 3 being Jalen Hood-Schifino, Maxwell Lewis, and Bronny James, all of which were non-rotation players for them and really barely saw the court apart from the G League, so probably don't want to go that route again. Nothing wrong with that for a rebuilding team, but the Lakers simply don't have that luxury. Trying to compete for a championship, having the utmost and highest of expectations with guys like LeBron and Luka, they can't afford to roster too many project players, especially with them already having one in Bronny. Then in regard to skill set and position, I think the obvious need here would be a big man. They have neither a starting nor backup center under contract at the moment, unless you count Maxi Kleber, and that's definitely not enough. So finding a way to draft a long-term rotation level center could be very big for their team, and I think that's what they need to focus on here. But okay, great. Now that we have it figured out that the Lakers have the 55th overall draft pick, their options to sign that player to a contract, and in regard to what they need here and probably should target, both in regard to skill set and position, what player might actually fall to them at 55th overall? I mean, like I said, that is the 4th final draft pick, so it's really difficult to predict what player might fall to them or who might still be there at that point, so it kind of is a guessing game, Can never say for certain that one player will be or won't be there at that point, but if we are talking about a center, they usually don't tend to go that quickly or don't get taken off the board a whole lot quicker than we think, especially in regard to a second round draft pick. So for my personal pick, and if the Lakers don't move up or out of the NBA draft entirely, I'd really like a guy like Amari Williams at 55th overall. Now if you have no idea who he is and don't keep up with college basketball, we're talking about a 7-foot, 260-pound center that finished his 5th and final college year at Kentucky last season. So yes, we are talking about a player with a full college background here. Not only the traditional 4 years in college, but then the 5th year from the COVID year, being a super senior quote unquote, playing his first 4 years at Drexel College, a mid-major D1 college, then like I said, transferring to Kentucky for his 5th and final year of college. Which leads to him being a bit older than your traditional NBA draft prospect. You know, not a 24, 25-year-old, but he is 23. Older than your typical one-and-done freshman, or your overseas prospect that might be 18 or 19 coming over. But in my opinion, that's actually a good thing for the Lakers. Like I said, they don't want a project player and a guy that can't contribute to their team, or pretty much offer them nothing but long-term potential. That's not the case here for Amari Williams. Yes, he might have a lower ceiling, maybe, especially compared to an 18 or 19-year-old that's taken for their long-term growth and potential. Yeah, compared to that player, he definitely has a lower ceiling. Obviously compared to a first-round draft pick, but even compared to some second-round draft picks, sure. But at the end of the day here, that's not what the Lakers need. They don't need a long-term prospect, a guy that could become something for them, but is a definite big risk. That's not the case here with Amari Williams. He's more of a floor player, quote unquote, a guy that can offer you his baseline level of what he showed in college, and for himself, that means a guy that can offer rebounding, a great rebounder, a very good rim protector, a good rim runner, and a lot of the things that traditional big men offer, with some additional unique ability at the position. But before we talk about his skill set and what he might be able to offer at the NBA level, more about his intangibles and measurements here. Unfortunately, it was not an official NBA Draft Combine invite, so we don't have an official vertical or wingspan or height without shoes on measurement, but from college and looking at the tape here, is 7 foot, 260 pounds, is a very good athlete. I'd say probably a top 5 to top 10 center prospect athlete. Can definitely be a good lob threat, can definitely be a good switchable defender and a very good rim runner, so that's a good baseline level for a center and for a traditional level center. And simply in terms of being NBA ready with his body, I'd say he's right at the top. Definitely has a filled out frame, isn't going to get a whole lot bigger, it doesn't really have to be, already roughly 260 pounds and is kind of that grown man strength, isn't some 18 or 19-year-old that's still growing or trying to grow into their body. Amari Williams definitely is filled out and that's not a worry with him entering the NBA. Can bang around with other NBA bigs, is even bigger than a whole lot of modern day centers, so that's not a problem with him. In regard to height, measurements, intangibles, there's a lot to like here with Amari Williams in my opinion. But after that, and then talking about his skill set, beginning with more of the traditional center stuff, definitely has that part covered here, is a great rebounder and probably one of the top 5 best rebounders in the entire NBA draft. During his senior, or rather 5th and final year of college, Amari Williams grabbed 8.5 rebounds per game in roughly 23 minutes per game. Very impressive, and if you translate that to per 40-minute average, the guy grabbed roughly 15 rebounds per game, including 11.3 defensive rebounds per game and 3.6 offensive rebounds per game. Definitely a very committed and tough rebounder that knows how to use his size to his full advantage, pushing guys around the rim, getting great positioning down low, and simply never giving up on a play. That can definitely translate to the NBA level, simply a guy that fights hard to keep the ball alive and then grabbing it and thinking that he didn't offer that much for their team, isn't really that physical, more so was the lob threat and rim runner for their team, not the physical presence down low that would keep a bunch of plays alive for them. However, that's not the case with Amari Williams. In fact, that might be his best strength entering the NBA and probably the thing you can rely on him the most in my opinion. Then to go along with that, not only about the defensive rebounding, but then what he can do directly after that point, is actually a pretty skilled big man like I said, and this is one part of it. Immediately after grabbing a defensive rebound, he doesn't have to look to a guard or simply a ball handler to bring it up the court, he directly can do that himself. Kind of comparable to a guy we've talked about like Nick Claxton for example, immediately after grabbing a rebound or even in the half court, can put the ball on the floor and actually dribble the ball up the court himself too. So definitely the advantage there is a true 7-footer that can offer some ball handling ability and put pressure on your opponent's defense and not let them get set up correctly. And well, that does translate well to the half-court setting, not only from the ball handling ability, but then from another unique talent he has, that being playmaking ability. Has some really unique vision and some very unique passing ability, which not only compares him once again kind of to a guy like Nic Claxton, even better than him in that regard in my opinion, but a little bit to a guy like Domantas Sabonis or maybe Jusuf Nurkic, kind of a different comparison for how athletic and the build that Amari Williams has. But if you watch the background tape here and simply his college tape, how much offense that Kentucky ran around him and using him as kind of a high post facilitator, that's a very unique skill set that he does have and might be able to offer at the NBA level as well. Dishing it to him at the high post, kind of like the Lakers tried to use Anthony Davis prior to trading him, initiating some of their offense around him, having backdoor cutters, and often using him as kind of that DHO guy, or then to initiate backdoor cuts and pin down screens around him. That's something that might be a useful trait with Amari Williams. Maybe not during his rookie year, but kind of a long-term outlook with him, and something that he did show during his college background. I mean, he's no Nikola Jokic out there, but he definitely did show some good passing ability for a big. During his final year of college, averaging 3.2 assists per game to roughly 2 turnovers per game, pretty impressive for a big. Then on top of that, tying their team lead in total assists, having 115 during his final year of college, very impressive for a big. Not only that, but being second on their team in assists per game, behind only their point guard Lamont Butler. So no matter what way you look at it, some very unique passing ability and a very unique skill set for a big that not many offer in the NBA draft other than Amari Williams. But even apart from passing ability or his rebounding ability, both of which we've talked about and probably would be 2 of his top 5 strengths in my opinion, we definitely gotta talk more about his defense and simply athletic ability. First and foremost, that's gotta be one of his number 1 strengths. Again, I can't find a vertical measurement for him, but I would probably estimate it to be about a 30 to 35 standing vertical leap, roughly in that range, and that will likely translate to him being a great rim protector and a great lob threat, at least a great shot blocker at the bare minimum. During his final year of college, did average 1.2 blocks per game in 23 minutes per game, translating to 2.1 per 40 minutes. During his time at Drexel, actually averaged over 3 of them per game, or 3 of them per 40 minutes I mean. So definitely did show some good shot blocking and good rim protection ability, but that's not the only thing here on defense. Apart from that, actually can offer switchability on defense, and that's arguably even more important in the NBA. With all the 5-out defense and the 1-through-5 switching, you gotta be a fairly mobile big, and that definitely is the case for Amari Williams. Maybe won't be able to switch 1-through-5, not exactly like a Nic Claxton or Anthony Davis per se, but definitely can offer some switchability. Is not completely reliant on drop coverage or being exactly tied to the rim. He can actually move his feet a bit. So not only a good rim protector, or at least a potentially good rim protector, but a fairly versatile defender in general and one that does have defensive upside. So combine that with the rebounding, combine that with the passing ability, and then the athletic ability that should translate to being a good lob threat, definitely another priority for their team. Wanting to add more guys like Derek Lively, Daniel Gafford, that kind of big around Luka Doncic, guys they played with back in Dallas. Amari Williams might be able to replicate that, albeit to a slightly lesser extent. Wouldn't quite call him as athletic or vertically athletic compared to them, but right under them I definitely would put him. Is a good athlete, does appear to have good hands, and should be a good alley-oop connection with a good playmaker like Luka Doncic. I'd say that's a pretty good skill set for Amari Williams that he probably can translate to the NBA. Now I wouldn't expect him to be a great low post scoring threat. Can be a lob threat and dump off guy around the rim, but don't expect him to average 20 points per game at any point. Doesn't have the best low post scoring moves, doesn't have the best touch, albeit not a terrible touch. Is a lefty by the way, so gotta keep that in mind here too. But more so offensively being a lob threat, a dump off guy around the rim, or again a mid post facilitator that can be used in that way, but not much of a scoring threat in general. Nor is he a 3-point shooter. Maybe could eventually develop that and did take a few of them throughout college, but has not quite developed a jump shot, neither from the 3-point range nor from the mid range, so gotta factor that in here too. Cons here overall would be shooting, lack of touch around the rim, not having the best touch around the rim, albeit not a terrible touch, and simply not a great offensive contributor in regard to scoring. But then for his pros, which I think do outweigh the cons here, I would put rebounding, probably number 1, then directly after that, passing ability and playmaking ability as a big, very unique in my opinion and something that should be factored in with him. Then for his athletic ability, being a lob threat, translating well to defense, both offering rim protection and switchability on defense. So definitely more pros here and things you can directly point to with Amari Williams, which should make him a relatively high floor, albeit lower ceiling kind of big that could immediately offer value at the NBA level. And well, with all of that being said, what do you guys think? How do you feel about Amari Williams? Had you heard about him prior to this video? Do you like what he projects as an NBA player? Do you not like it, and would you prefer a different player over him? Or simply what do you think? Let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. But I think that'll pretty much do it for this one, and if you enjoyed the video, then I'll greatly appreciate it if you dropped a like, subscribe to the channel if you have not already, and hit that notification bell to never miss out when I upload a video. But as always, thank you for watching and have a great day or night.